Youngstown, County Tyrone, is famed for its long shopping street, its well-established Saturday market, and its beautiful Christmas lights. Just a few miles outside town sits Desertcreat Church, one of the oldest Christian worship sites in Ireland. On visiting the church, it is humbling to reflect on the fact that Christians have been worshipping on this site for 1,500 years, and that throughout that time, expressions of worship have been different in form, but with the same goal, giving glory to God through worship and serving the community. During the 5th century, St. Patrick chose nearby Armagh as his ecclesiastical centre, and it was from there that he travelled to bring the Christian faith to the native Irish. Desertcreat, which means the hermitage or desert of two territories, would have been an extension of this burgeoning new faith inspired by St. Patrick and his teachings. It is, however, another Patrick, Bishop Patrick Donnelly of Phelim Brady, the Bard of Armond, who is perhaps most closely associated with the church. Born in 1649, Patrick Donnelly lived through one of the most turbulent periods of Irish history, which saw the eclipse of the Gaelic clans who for centuries had been the pillars of the Catholic Church. The young Patrick was born into a once powerful family. However, the family's influence was on the wane. His father's land, a modest 60 acres of shrubland and 5 acres of bogland in Desertcreat, was repossessed in the Cromwellian confiscations that occurred after the 1641 rebellion. By the year 1659, when Patrick was 10 years old, his family had lost everything. Patrick was ordained in 1673 and appointed curate in Armagh City. Months after his ordination, however, the Protestant Parliament issued a decree dissolving all church property. Under the mentorship of Oliver Plunkett, Patrick attended the Collège des Lombards in Paris, where he studied for 6 years, graduating with a joint doctorate in civil and canon law. He was appointed Bishop of Dromore in 1697, but the very same year the Suppression of Popery Act was passed. The Act banned bishops and Catholic clergy, and Dr. O'Donnelly became an outlaw. He fled to the South Armagh Hills, living in a small house which is still standing and known locally as the Doctor's Quarters. A simple farmhouse nesting in the shadow of Slieve Gullion, a truly beautiful part of the province. For much of the year, Patrick worked as an ordinary farmer, but in the summer months he would undertake an episcopal tour of the whole diocese, disguised as a wandering minstrel Phelim Brady, visiting the sick by night and celebrating Mass in secret. His story is part of the Irish folk tradition and has been taught to generations of musicians in the words of the song, The Bard of Armond. "O list to the lay of a poor Irish harper, and scorn not the strings in his old withered hands, but remember those fingers they once could move sharper to raise up the strains of his dear native land." When Patrick Donnelly died in 1716, his body was carried at night by torchlight from farmhouse to farmhouse and laid to rest in the graveyard at Desertcreat. Today, his grave is marked by an 18th century slab with raised bishop's mitre and crozier at the south of the church, his remarkable life having come full circle, back to where it all began, in Desertcreat. In September 2016, the Desertcreat community held a weekend festival of poetry and music to remember the story of the Bard of Armond. This was made possible by generous funding from the Heritage Lottery Fund. A new history book was published, School children were involved in writing poems. Music and laughter filled the air. There was a sense of a community remembering and coming together to celebrate a life. To mark the occasion, a new stone was carved and placed on the grave of the Bard of Armond, detailing who Patrick Donnelly was and how he left his mark on this world. We also commissioned several new works of art, including a banner and a painting depicting Patrick Donnelly, a lone figure walking the slopes of Gullion with his shepherd's crook. Little more than a mile away, on top of a gently sloping hill, Tullyhog Fort can be seen. Meaning Hill of the Youth, or Mound of the Young Warriors, the site is thought to have had a ritual significance from early times, but rose to prominence from around the 14th century, when it became the ceremonial centre where chieftains of the O'Neill clan were inaugurated. The ceremony at Tullyhog Fort involved throwing a golden sandal over the head of the O'Neill, as the new king was styled. During this, the king would have been sat on the Lecnaree, or flagstone of the kings. A reconstruction of the Lecnaree can be seen at the foot of the fort. The O'Neill home was in Dungannon. Today you can visit an excellent exhibition centre on the Hill of the O'Neill at Ranfurly House, where on a clear day there are impressive views across the countryside. The Coronation Stone has an intriguing link to Desertcreat Church. In 1602, the stone was smashed on the orders of the English commander Lord Mountjoy, symbolically ending the O'Neill's sovereignty. The O'Neills, along with the other prominent rulers, left Ireland in what is known as the Flight of the Earls. They never returned home. A fragment of the stone was later recovered by Reverend Richard Dobbs, who had his initials and the date 1735 carved upon it. It was at first used in the building of the rectory yard, but later removed and incorporated into Desertcreat Church porch, where it can still be seen today. Tullyhog Fort is also closely associated with the O'Hagans, who were guardians of the site. Their ancient burial ground was at Dunarisk, a stone's throw from the fort. Originally much larger than the circular enclosure that can be seen today, Dunarisk was also the burial ground of the Lindsay family. The Lindsays owned the beautiful Lochrie estate adjacent to Desertcreat. Running along the fringe of the estate is the pretty Ballinderry River, with its deep, mysterious pools, tinkling waterfalls, and ethereal ambience, which is said to have inspired Gulliver's Travels. Jonathan Swift, Dean of St Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin, was a frequent visitor to Lochrie. It was here Swift wrote A Tale of a Tub. The first few decades of the 20th century were a time of great upheaval for Ireland and the world. In 1919, a memorial containing the names of all those parishioners who had taken part in the Great War was presented to Desertcreat Church. A similar roll of honour for those who fought in the Second War was dedicated in 1958. Local people have fond memories of American soldiers stationed nearby at Desertcreat Farm. After the war, several GIs stayed in touch, grateful for kindness and hospitality shown to them. Today, an old army hut sits at the entrance to the church car park, a visible reminder of our American allies who passed by here in the 1940s. Recently, we were treated to a rare glimpse of life from over 100 years ago. R.C. McCain was a local man with an interest in photography. In the early 1900s, he photographed local people, buildings, and scenes. His glass plate negatives were discovered by his granddaughter, Lynn Buckley, also a keen and gifted photographer. Lynn digitized the old pictures and made them available to view online and at our local theatre in Cookstown. The photos offered a fascinating glimpse into life here over 100 years ago. In 1927, Desertcreat amalgamated with the neighbouring parish of St Andrews Artray. The union between the two parishes has been greatly beneficial to both, fostering new links and friendships. Artray Church sits on top of the hill of St Tray. It's a beautiful site, exposed to the elements, but with a wonderful view over Slieve Gallion. It is a Christian community buzzing with warmth, welcome, and has enjoyed growth over the past number of years. Over the years, the community at Desertcreat benefited from the gifts of a number of benefactors, including Thomas MacGregor Greer of Tullylagan. He presented many handcrafted items, including the exquisitely carved reredos and silver Celtic arms dish. In 1939, the pulpit, reading desk and lectern, all made from Austrian oak, were dedicated. It was also at this time that the font was removed to the west of the church, where it had originally stood. In September 2013, the community opened a new hall at Desertcreat. Dedicated by Archbishop Clark and opened by our oldest member, Jim Warnock, the hall has given the community a new space for being together and indeed to welcome visitors. During summer 2016, through networking with the Clans of Ulster and the O'Neill Country Historical Society, we welcomed guests from Donegal and the USA. Our organisations meet weekly, but we have hosted some special events to date. During November 2014, over Remembrance Weekend, we held a series of events to help us mark the beginning of the First World War. It was a thought-provoking weekend, during which we hosted a concert, put on an exhibition, and held a special service of remembrance. We were grateful to the Heritage Lottery Fund, which helped to make it possible. In Christmas 2014, we held a Christmas tree festival, and were delighted that the whole community were involved in creating all kinds of different trees. An important part of our mission is to be an outward-looking church, actively sharing the love of God both at home and also overseas. The Christian community, founded here 1,500 years ago, is still alive and flourishing. Thank you for taking time to visit.